I always thought the biggest problem in my marriage to Eleanor was her job, the one that always came first. That was until a painfully, almost ironically, sunny afternoon when Mr. Peterson from HR called me into his office. With a voice that was an unsettling mix of pity and corporate procedure, he told me that due to a structural reorganization, my position was being eliminated. The severance package was decent enough, but the feeling of being cut loose, of being discarded, was like a bucket of ice water dumped over my head. The chills seeped into my bones instantly. I'd been in this role for 5 years. I'd worked my tail off, and if I hadn't earned any medals, I'd certainly put in the hours. Just last week, I'd pulled 3 all-nighters to wrap up that godforsaken Project Horizon. And now, the moment the project was finished, I was the part being reorganized. Mr. Peterson adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses, avoiding my gaze. Ryan, everyone knows you're a capable guy. It's just, well, the company has to consider the bigger picture. I got it. Well, load of crap. It was about the new director they brought in, Markham. He wanted to bring in his own people. I stretched my lips, trying to force a nonchalant smile, but my facial muscles were stiff as a board. I ended up just nodding, my voice dry. Okay, I understand. When do I sign the papers? Walking out of the office building, clutching a cardboard box with my personal belongings, the afternoon sun was so bright it made my eyes ache. The city was the same as ever. A relentless river of traffic, loud and indifferent, as if my 5 years of grinding away were nothing more than insignificant background noise. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it with my thumb, and the screen lit up. My first instinct was to text Eleanor. My finger hovered over the chat window for a long moment before I locked the screen again. What would I even say? Hey, honey, your husband just got laid off. Guess you'll be supporting us for a while. What could she say? Probably something like, got it. In a meeting. Talk later. Or worse, she'd analyze the situation with that cool, almost clinical precision of hers. Ryan, I told you that little company was a dead end. You should have been planning your next move ages ago. She was always right. She was Eleanor, after all. The woman who'd been a campus superstar in college and had been climbing the corporate ladder ever since. Now she was a mid-level manager at a sizable company, so busy she barely touched the ground. Our home was more like a high-end hotel for her. And me? I was content with the status quo, holding a decent position at a mid-tier company, earning a decent salary. It seemed there had been an imbalance between us from the very beginning. The apartment was empty when I got home. Eleanor wasn't there, of course. I dropped the box by the door and threw myself onto the sofa. A wave of exhaustion washed over me. Not a physical tiredness, but a deep, bone-weary sense of powerlessness. The first day of my unemployment, I pretended everything was normal. I got up early, left the apartment, and sat on a park bench all day, returning home around the time the workday ended. I didn't want Eleanor to know just yet. It wasn't that I was afraid she'd blame me, but I didn't want to face that look, not of blame, but of quiet disappointment. The second day, I couldn't be bothered to keep up the act. I slept until noon, ordered some DoorDash, and opened my laptop to mindlessly browse LinkedIn. The third day, I found only a handful of suitable positions. Most of the resumes I sent out vanished into a digital black hole. Eleanor texted me once during that time, asking what I wanted for dinner. I replied, whatever. She didn't write back. On the afternoon of the third day, I was staring blankly at a video game when the lock on the front door clicked. It was Eleanor. It was rare for her to be home at this hour. She was dressed in a sharp business suit, her makeup flawless, but there was a weariness in her eyes she couldn't quite hide. She saw me and paused. You're not at work? Yeah, took a personal day. I mumbled. She didn't press. She changed into her slippers and walked straight to the kitchen to get a glass of water. The atmosphere felt heavy. Watching her back as she moved around, I suddenly had the urge to just lay it all out. What was the worst that could happen? She'd lecture me, and even that would be better than this lukewarm, suffocating silence. Eleanor, I started, my voice a little hoarse. Just then, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her brow furrowing slightly, and answered immediately. Hello, Mr. Harrison. Yes, I've reviewed the proposal, but a few of the data points need to be verified. Understood. I'll be right back in to handle it. She hung up and grabbed the purse she just set down. Something urgent came up at work. I have to go back. Don't wait up for me for dinner. Watching her hurry away, the words I'd been about to say died in my throat. See, this was my wife. Work always came first. Me, her unemployed husband, weathering a personal hurricane at home, wasn't even as important as some data points that needed verifying. A bitter mix of self-mockery and anger fermented in my chest. I picked up my phone and, on impulse, opened the one group chat I never looked at, the one I'd been forcibly added to when I left. the old company's hashtag random gossip Slack channel. An admin had added me when I was doing my exit paperwork, saying it was for any follow-up questions. I'd muted it immediately. Today, the channel was on fire. Hundreds of unread messages. I tapped it open and scrolled up casually. Most of it was people complaining about the new director, Markham, and how much of a nightmare he was, reminiscing about how I, the old workhorse, used to keep things steady. I gave a grim smile and was about to close the app when a message posted just a few minutes earlier caught my eye. It was from Chloe, the receptionist, and it was followed by a string of shocked emojis. OMG, you guys, the tea is piping hot. That beautiful VP who flew in from HQ to do the audit? Her name is Vance. She just went ballistic in the top floor conference room and fired Markham on the spot. I heard it was because the data in Project Horizon was messed up and almost caused a massive loss. The channel exploded. For real? Which VP Vance? Never heard of her. I know. I think her name is Eleanor Vance. Super young, but an absolute shark. The board brought her in specifically for this. Eleanor, that name sounds familiar. My heart hammered against my ribs, as if squeezed by an invisible hand. Eleanor Vance, the vice president. No way. It had to be a coincidence. My wife, Eleanor, was capable, sure, but a VP sent from corporate headquarters? She worked at a completely different, unrelated company. Chloe posted again. Pics, or it didn't happen, right? Image. The photo was blurry, apparently snapped from outside the conference room, but you could clearly see the profile of the woman sitting at the head of the table. The sharp bob, the elegant line of her jaw, the cream-colored blazer she was wearing. The one I'd gone with her to buy. My mind went completely, utterly blank. It was her, Eleanor, my wife, not some mid-level manager at another company, but the vice president from HQ at my former company. The woman who could fire a director with a snap of her fingers. So, she knew where I worked all along. She knew about all my overtime, all the blood, sweat, and tears I'd poured into Project Horizon. She also knew that Markham, the man who replaced me, and she herself, were the direct or indirect reasons I'd been reorganized out of a job. And she never said a word. She watched me stress about it, watched me pull all-nighters, and even after I was laid off, she could still ask me what I wanted for dinner, as if nothing had happened. An icy feeling of being utterly played, of being left completely on the outside, crept up my spine. It was 100 times worse than being told I was fired. The Slack channel was still blowing up. Holy crap, it really is her. She just posted an announcement in the All Hands channel. Markham's appointment has been rescinded, and she's formally inviting key contributor to Project Horizon, Mr. Ryan Cole, to return as project director, reporting directly to her. Hey, Ryan Cole, dude, you've been playing the long game, haven't you? Ryan, you were the real boss all along. Wait, Ryan Cole. Eleanor Vance. No way there. Holy SD. A power couple. This is like something straight out of a movie. The phone slipped from my hand, landing silently on the soft rug. I sat there, frozen. 1,000 images flashed through my mind. Eleanor's occasional questions about my company that seemed a little too well-informed. Her frustration with my lack of career ambition. That she was hating the iron for not becoming steel. Those classified documents in her study with the Omnicorp logo that I never understood. It all made sense now. The signs had been there all along. I hadn't married a workaholic. I had married my boss's boss's boss, a woman who could make or break my career with a single word. And I, like an idiot, had been complaining to her about my job, worrying about my future, getting excited over a little overtime pay. The sound of a key turning in the lock came from the entryway. Eleanor was back. She walked into the living room and seemed surprised to find me sitting in the dark. Why are the lights off? She reached out and flicked on the main switch. The sudden, harsh light made me squint. I looked at her, really looked at my wife for the first time. There was a faint trace of exhaustion on her face, but it was overshadowed by the calm, composed aura of a victor. Maybe she had just won a brilliant power struggle and, as an afterthought, scooped me, the key contributor, back into the fold. She walked over to me, set down her purse, and tried to sound casual. What's wrong? You look awful. She paused, her eyes drifting down to my phone, lying silently on the floor, its screen still glowing, frozen on the explosive Slack conversation. Her movements stuttered for a fraction of a second. A flicker of something unnatural crossed her face, but it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by her usual calm. She took a deep breath, as if steeling herself for something. You saw, she said. It wasn't a question. I looked up, meeting her gaze, and said nothing. The living room was so quiet I could hear the second hand of the wall, clock ticking. After a long silence, she spoke first, her voice lower than usual. Ryan, I was going to tell you. I was just waiting for a better time. A better time, I repeated, the words catching in my throat. When was that going to be? When you were watching me send out resumes like a headless chicken, or when you decided to use me as a pawn to put back on the board? I wasn't using you as a pawn, Eleanor said, her brow furrowed. Project Horizon was a mess. Markham was incompetent in playing politics. I had to correct the mistake. Your ability and your contribution deserved to be rewarded. Rewarded? I nearly laughed out loud. So, I should be grateful? Thank you, Ms. Vance, for remembering your insignificant ex-husband in the middle of your busy schedule and bestowing the title of director upon him. Ryan, her voice took on a warning tone. Don't be like this. I did this for the company and for you. For me. I stood up and walked toward her. We were less than 3 feet apart, but it felt like a canyon separated us. You hid your real identity and position from me. You watched me kill myself for a job that was 10 rungs below yours on a ladder. You watched me doubt myself after I was fired. Eleanor, for the last 5 years in your eyes, have I just been a clown putting on a show for you? Her lips pressed into a thin line. She looked at me with a complex expression, guilt, helplessness, and maybe even a hint of hurt. I didn't mean to hide it from you, she said, looking away toward the dark night outside the window. In the beginning, when we first got together, you had so much pride. I was afraid if you knew about my background and my job, you'd feel pressured, that you'd pull away. And later I just got used to it, and I didn't know how to bring it up. Besides, my work involves a lot of confidential information at the corporate level. Sometimes it wasn't convenient to share too much. Not convenient, I nodded. So you chose the most hurtful way possible. You shut me out of your world. In your world, you're the master strategist, the general on the battlefield. But in our world, you were just a busy wife who was never home. And I was the fool who deserved to be kept in the dark, the perfect tool to be used when you needed a clean house at the office. A tool? Ryan, is that how you see yourself? Is that how you see our 5 years together? Eleanor's voice trembled slightly. She turned back to me, her eyes glistening, but she blinked the moisture away. Yes, I admit it was my fault for hiding it. I'm used to handling problems on my own, used to being in control. I ignored your feelings. But I have never, ever looked down on you, and I've certainly never thought of you as a tool. She took a step forward, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. Her hand froze in midair, and the color drained from her face. I knew you worked here when I got the transfer order from HQ to come clean up this branch, she said quietly. I was going to tell you right away, but then I saw how invested you were in Project Horizon, how driven you were. I didn't want my position to make you uncomfortable or to have your colleagues look at you differently. I was going to wait until things settled down here, find the right time to what? I cut her off. To reveal the big secret with a personnel change, just like you did today. Eleanor, is this how you always handle things from the top down? In my career, you can fire me with one word and hire me back with another. Did you ever stop to ask me if I wanted to go back? If I wanted to play the role of the capable husband employee under the command of Vice President Vance? I had said the most cutting thing I could think of. I saw her shoulders tremble almost imperceptibly. She fell silent. Once again, the only sound in the room was the ticking of the clock, each tick landing like a hammer blow. After a long while, she finally looked up. Her expression was back to its usual calm, but her eyes held a shattered look deep within. Okay, I understand, she said softly. So, Ryan, are you telling me now that you don't want to come back? I didn't answer right away. Anger and hurt were still warring in my chest, but at the same time, another quieter voice spoke up from somewhere deep inside. It asked if our 5-year marriage was really built on nothing but deceit and inequality. Were all the warm moments, all the times we leaned on each other, fake? I remembered her staying up late to help me organize my reports, even though she probably didn't need to, the clumsy way she tried to make me soup when I was sick, the time she fell asleep on my shoulder while we watched some stupid movie on the couch. Who was it that I loved? The powerful vice president shrouded in a corporate halo? Or this woman, Eleanor, who got tired, who could be vulnerable, and who was just impossibly stubborn about certain things? I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. This project director position. I began, my voice surprisingly calm. What's the pay like? Eleanor froze, clearly not expecting that question. She blinked, her long lashes fluttering like a butterfly's wings. It's at the top of the director-level pay scale, she answered quickly, a hint of hope in her voice. With the project bonus, it should be significantly higher than what you were making before. Oh, I nodded. Does it come with a private office? Yes, she replied, even faster. South-facing. It's a good size. And an assistant. Yes, you can pick your own. I stroked my chin, pretending to think. And I report directly to you? Yes. She watched me, her gaze intense. Well then, I drew out the words, watching as she unconsciously held her breath. The knot of anger in my chest loosened a little. I took a step forward, closing the distance between us. Vice President Vance, I said, looking into her slightly widened eyes, speaking slowly and deliberately. Before I decide whether or not to accept your offer, I think we have a much more serious problem to address first. What problem? She asked instinctively. The problem of your long-term, systematic, and multi-layered concealment of information from your husband. That's me, and the potential negative impact it has had on his mental health and career. I enunciated every word with mock seriousness. A faint blush rose on Eleanor's cheeks. I couldn't tell if it was from anger or embarrassment. Ryan, I believe, I interrupted her, my eyes fixed on her lips, which were pressed together in a nervous line, that this problem requires in-depth, honest, and protracted communication. It will probably take a candlelit dinner, followed by at least 1 month of daily, hour-long conversations, just to reach a preliminary understanding. Eleanor stared at me, the ice in her eyes slowly melting away, replaced by a soft, bright light. She looked like she wanted to laugh, but was trying to hold it in. Finally, she just let out a soft, okay. And one more thing, I added, reaching out and finally taking her hand, which had been frozen in midair and was now slightly cool to the touch. When you get home from work, no more work calls. Unless, I paused, speaking before she could. It's a call to me. To report on your day. She finally let out a laugh. It crinkled the corners of her eyes and was more beautiful than ever. She squeezed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Okay, whatever you say, she said, her voice soft with relief. Mr. Director, save that title for when I show up for my first day tomorrow, I said, pulling her toward the kitchen. Right now, we need to resolve our domestic dispute. I'm starving, Ms. Vance. Is there anything in the fridge? I think. There are some tomatoes and eggs, she said, following me. Her tone was back to its usual efficiency, but laced with a newfound gentleness. All right, I sighed, feigning helplessness. I guess the vice president's husband will have to cook for her to soothe his traumatized future subordinate. She chuckled behind me, her fingers playfully tracing lines on my palm. Outside, the night had fully descended, and the city lights were beginning to glitter. Inside, the light was warm and bright, casting our elongated shadows so they overlapped on the floor. I knew we still had a lot to unpack, about identities, about trust, about the delicate power balance between us. But in that moment, holding her hand, thinking about the scrambled eggs and toast we were about to have, I figured getting fired might not have been the worst thing in the world. After all, not everyone gets the chance to have their own wife personally invite them back to their job, with a promotion and a raise thrown in, along with a chance to get to know each other all over again. As for the gossip blowing up the company's Slack, that could wait until tomorrow. The next day, walking into the familiar office building felt completely different. When Chloe at the front desk saw me, her eyes lit up like light bulbs, and her smile stretched from ear to ear. Good morning, Mr. Cole, she chirped. I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral. Morning. All the way to the elevator, I was met with a complex array of looks, curiosity, scrutiny, envy, and, I'm sure, a little bit of disdain. I kept my eyes forward and headed straight for HR on the top floor. When Mr. Peterson saw me, the look on his face was a masterpiece of conflicting emotions, embarrassment, sycophancy, and a touch of fear. Mr. Cole. Oh, I mean Ryan. No, that's not right, Mr. Cole, welcome back. All the paperwork is ready. Your office is on the 16th floor, right next to Ms. Vance's. Next to Ms. Vance's. I raised an eyebrow. Yes, Ms. Vance arranged it herself. She said it would be more convenient for coordinating work, Mr. Peterson said, wiping at sweat that wasn't there. I just grunted in acknowledgement. After getting my new ID badge and keys, I went up to the 16th floor. The new office was definitely an upgrade, spacious, bright, with a fantastic view. I sat down in my new leather executive chair and spun around once. It felt surreal. The desk phone rang. It was Eleanor's voice, or rather Ms. Vance's, cool and professional. Mr. Cole, could you come to my office for a moment? Of course, Ms. Vance. I stood up, straightened my collar, which wasn't crooked, took a deep breath, and walked next door. The door was ajar. I knocked, and a voice from inside said, "Come in." Eleanor was sitting behind a massive desk, reading a document. She was wearing a dark blue suit today, which made her look exceptionally sharp and also exceptionally distant. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine, and for a split second, I thought I saw a flicker of a smile in their depths, but it was immediately replaced by professional composure. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the chair opposite her. I sat down, my posture relaxed, as if I were just dropping by for a chat. This is the revised plan and personnel list for the reboot of Project Horizon. Take a look. She pushed a binder across the desk. You have full authority over the project team. If you need any resources, just submit a request. I took the file and started flipping through it. The names Markham had brought in were gone, replaced by a few of the talented people I had originally wanted on the team. Looks good, I said. Also, she paused, tapping her fingers unconsciously on the desk. Regarding our relationship, here at the company, I expect. Understand. I cut her off, meeting her gaze. Business is business. Personal is personal. At the office, you're Ms. Vance and I'm Mr. Cole. I won't take advantage of our relationship to get special treatment, and I expect you to hold me to the same high standards as everyone else. Eleanor looked at me, and some emotion seemed to stir in her eyes before settling into a simple nod. Good. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll get to work, Ms. Vance, I said, standing up. Wait, she called out. I turned back. She took a thermos out of her desk drawer and placed it on the table, her tone softening slightly. My mom dropped this off this morning. Chicken soup. She said you've been working hard and needed it. I was taken aback for a moment, staring at the floral print thermos, so out of place in this cold, corporate office. A corner of my heart suddenly softened. My mother-in-law had always been good to me. Please thank her for me, I said, picking up the thermos. Any other instructions, Ms. Vance? No, that's all. You can go. As I turned to leave and closed the door behind me, I thought I heard a very faint sigh from inside the room. Back in my office, I looked at the thermos, then out at the forest of skyscrapers. My feelings were complicated. This new beginning was turning out to be more challenging than I'd imagined. Not only did I have to navigate a familiar yet strange work environment, but I also had to manage the delicate relationship with my boss, who also happened to be my wife. With Project Horizon rebooted, we were starting from scratch. I poured all my energy into it, pushing the team around the clock. Eleanor was true to her word. She was incredibly strict with my work, even more demanding than she was with the other directors. Proposals were sent back for revision after revision. Data had to be precise to 2 decimal places, and she could find fault with the color scheme and font of my PowerPoint presentations. Someone on the team complained privately, Ms. Vance is just ruthless. Mr. Cole, you're her. I held up a hand to stop him. Work is work. It has nothing to do with anything else. Her high standards are a good thing. I knew this was her way of maintaining the principle of professionalism, of showing everyone that I, Ryan Cole, earned this position through merit, not through my connection to her. During this time, our conversations at home became a little strange, too. We were superior and subordinate during the day, and we tried to be husband and wife at night, but the role switching wasn't always smooth. Sometimes, we'd be in the middle of a work discussion and suddenly stop, realizing we were at home. Sometimes, I want to ask if she was tired, but the words would come out as, Ms. Vance, about that report. We were both struggling to adapt to this new equilibrium. Then came the day the project hit a major technical snag. The team had been working on it for days with little progress. At a project status meeting, after the lead engineer gave his update, the mood in the room was grim. Eleanor listened, her brow furrowed. Her gaze swept across the room and finally landed on me. Mr. Cole, is this the solution your team came up with? It's inefficient and full of holes. If this is a reflection of your capabilities, I'm beginning to question whether putting you in charge of this project was the right decision. Her voice was cold, devoid of any emotion. The conference room was dead silent. No one dared to breathe. I knew she was doing it on purpose. Humiliating me in front of so many people was a way to establish her authority and to push me to come up with a better plan. But in that moment, the exhaustion from days of overtime, combined with the sting of being publicly called out, caused a hot flash of anger to surge through me. I snapped my laptop shut, looked up, and stared directly at her. My voice was calm, but it had an edge. You're right, Ms. Vance. It seems my abilities are lacking, and I've failed to meet your expectations. Since you don't think I'm up to the task, perhaps you should find someone better for this project director position. With that, I stood up and, to the stunned silence of everyone in the room, walked straight out of the conference room. Back in my office, I yanked at my tie in frustration. I knew I had been impulsive, unprofessional. But in that moment, I was just done playing along with her drama of the iron-fisted boss and her capable subordinate. The desk phone rang, its shrill sound cutting through the silence. I didn't have to look to know who it was. I ignored it. My cell phone started vibrating. The name is Vance flashing on the screen. I ignored that, too. A few minutes later, my office door was pushed open. Eleanor stood in the doorway, her face so dark it looked like a storm cloud. She shut the door behind her and strode to my desk. Ryan, what was that about? She said, her voice low but seething with anger. Walking out in front of the entire team. Is that how you handle your professional responsibilities? What about my attitude? I leaned back in my chair and looked at her. Weren't you just questioning my abilities? I am graciously stepping aside. What's the problem? You know, that's not what I meant, she said, her chest rising and falling with her breathing. I was pushing you. I was trying to get you to come up with a better solution. Pushing me? I scoffed. Ms. Vance, have you gotten so used to motivating your subordinates with condescension, including your husband? At the company, they're only bosses and employees, not husbands and wives, she insisted. Is that so? I stood up, walked around the desk, and stood in front of her. Then why are you in my office right now, questioning me in this private, emotionally charged tone? Vice President Vance, isn't this a clear case of you being unable to separate business from your personal life? She was momentarily speechless, her cheeks flushing a deeper red with anger. Her beautiful eyes glared at me, filled with fire and a hint of hurt. Ryan, do you have to talk to me like this? Her voice dropped, laced with an exhaustion and vulnerability she rarely showed. Seeing her like that, the fire in my own chest died down. I sighed and rubbed my brow. Eleanor, I said, using her name, not her title. Can we just not do this? We have to play the part of a perfectly respectful couple at home and then act out some power struggle at the office. Aren't you tired? She was quiet for a moment, her long lashes lowering to hide the emotion in her eyes. I don't want this either, but I have to do it. People are watching you and watching me. I can't let anyone say you're just some hack who got his job because of me. So I have to endure your double standards and public humiliation. I looked at her. Is this your way of protecting me? She looked up, her expression complex. I'm sorry. What I said in the meeting was too harsh. You were just used to being in control, used to solving problems in what you think is the most effective way. I finished for her, including solving me. She opened her mouth to argue, but ended up letting out a resigned sigh. Can we talk about this at home tonight? Right now, the project issue has to be solved. The tech team is waiting. I saw the dark circles under her eyes and knew she was under immense pressure, too. Cleaning up the branch office, relaunching the project, dealing with pressure from HQ, and on top of it all, managing the mess between us. Fine, I nodded. I'll go down to the tech department and work with them. I turned to leave, but she gently tugged on the sleeve of my jacket from behind. I looked back. She quickly let go, her gaze shifting away. Her voice was very soft. Did you drink the soup? I paused, remembering the thermos from that morning. Yeah, it was good. Mom said she wants you to come over for dinner this weekend. She's making lasagna. Okay. The taut string between us seemed to loosen a little, all because of a simple conversation about chicken soup and lasagna. The technical problem was eventually solved with a not insignificant contribution from me. I led the team to an innovative solution that not only fixed the original issue, but also optimized the entire process. At the final project presentation to headquarters, I was the main speaker. My delivery was clear, my data was solid, and I handled the questions from the senior executives with ease. From the corner of my eye, I could feel Eleanor's gaze on me from the audience, a look that was appraising but also held a trace of subtle pride. When the presentation ended, the room broke into applause. The executives from HQ were highly complimentary of the project's results. As the room cleared out, I lingered at the back, and Eleanor deliberately slowed her pace to wait for me. You did a good job, she said, looking straight ahead. Her voice was quiet but clear enough for me to hear. Thank you for the vote of confidence, Ms. Vance, I replied, keeping it professional. She stopped for a second, glanced at me, and I thought I saw the corner of her mouth twitch into a smile, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Don't forget about dinner this weekend. I won't. The project's success solidified my position in the company. The whispers about me getting the job through connections gradually faded away. The way my team looked at me changed from curiosity and skepticism to genuine trust and respect. My relationship with Eleanor seemed to enter a new phase as well. She stopped being so intentionally cold to me at the office. If we passed each other in the hallway, she would give a slight nod. In meetings, when I offered an opinion, she would listen attentively, and sometimes she would even adopt my dissenting view. At home, we could finally talk about work without it being awkward, but we also stopped letting it consume all our time. We started to get back some of what we used to have, watching a movie together or just sitting on opposite ends of the sofa, her reading industry reports, me reading a novel, not interacting, but peaceful and comfortable in each other's presence. She kept her promise. After coming home from work, she did her best not to take work calls. Sometimes her phone would ring, and she'd glance at it and either decline the call or take it on the balcony, keeping her voice low. I was beginning to understand that her earlier deception and her subsequent harshness, while flawed, were driven by her own anxieties and her own methods. She was in a high-stakes position and had to consider things from 100 different angles. She had learned to protect herself and the people and things she cared about with a tough exterior. And I, in turn, had to learn how to be a partner to someone that powerful, how to maintain my own self-respect while also understanding and accepting her world. A few months later, under Eleanor's leadership, the branch office's performance was soaring. Project Horizon became a benchmark for success within the entire corporation. HQ was so pleased with her work that they started making plans to transfer her back to the main office in New York for an even more significant role. One evening, in a rare occurrence, she didn't work late and came home early. She seemed distracted during dinner. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Is HQ giving you a hard time?" She shook her head, put down her chopsticks, and looked at me. "They want to transfer me back to New York. The position, it would be a major promotion." The hand bringing food to my mouth paused. "Oh, that's great news. Congratulations. Do you want me to go?" she asked, her gaze intense. I poked at the rice in my bowl. "It's your career. It's your decision, of course." "What if we both went?" she said softly. "I could recommend you to HQ. The opportunities, they're much bigger. There are positions that would be a perfect fit for you." I looked up at her. Her eyes were full of hope, but also a careful hesitation. I smiled and put down my fork. "Eleanor, do you remember what we agreed on? In-depth, honest, protracted communication." She nodded. "Okay, then I'll be honest," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "I don't want to go." A flash of disappointment crossed her face, but she didn't say anything, waiting for me to continue. "I like my job now. I like this city. I like this. Well, this new balance we've managed to build, which is pretty good." I spoke slowly. "I know your stage is huge, but my battlefield is here. I've carved out my own space here with my own skills, and it feels good. I don't want to go to a whole new environment and start over, especially not under the shadow of Vice President Vance." I paused, looking at her. "Besides, your mom is here. She's used to this city. If we both left, she'd be lonely." Eleanor listened quietly, the initial disappointment on her face gradually softening. "So," I concluded, "my suggestion is this. You go and conquer your bigger world. I'll stay here and hold down the fort. We could do the weekend marriage thing, or if you miss me too much, you can fly back often. You make the big bucks now. You can afford the plane tickets." She finally broke into a smile and playfully swatted my arm. "Who says I'd miss you?" After she laughed, she was quiet for a moment, then looked at me seriously. "Ryan, thank you." "For what?" "For not holding you back." "Thank you for being willing to stay," she said softly. "And thank you for showing me that a marriage isn't about one person depending on the other. It's about two independent people moving forward on their own tracks side by side." She reached out and placed her hand over mine. The warmth spread through my skin, steady and firm. "Okay," she said, "then I will go conquer my new world, and I won't feel guilty about it. Mr. Director, I'm leaving you in charge of our home and my mom." "Don't worry, Ms. Vance," I said, turning my hand over to clasp hers. Mission accepted. Outside, the moonlight was perfect. Inside, we looked at each other and smiled. I knew the road ahead would still have its challenges, the distance, the work-life balance. But this time, we were starting from a place of mutual understanding, armed with the courage to face whatever came next. From being laid off, to discovering my wife was a secret VP, to finding a new equilibrium in my career and marriage, the whole experience had been a roller coaster. But now, the ride had finally come to a smooth stop, and the view outside the window seemed wider and brighter than ever before. As for the company's Slack channel, the gossip about Ms. Vance's big promotion, Mr. Cole staying behind, and their legendary power couple love story would probably keep things buzzing for a while. But none of that mattered anymore.